Good now, everybody, and welcome back to Faceless Labs. We're here today to talk about Web3. What the heck do people mean when they say Web3, and why does it matter? First thing to understand is that while the internet has always been the internet, it's helpful to use terms like Web3 to classify the particular kinds of innovations we're talking about when we discuss cryptocurrency, blockchains, tokens, smart contracts, and so on. So if you've heard this term and you're wondering what it means, you're in the right place. Alex and I are going to walk you through this super simply today so anybody can understand it. Alex, what is Web3 and why does it matter? Can you tell me if we're at 3? I mean, how did we get to 3? Is there a 1? Is there a 2? What's going on with that?
There is a 1 and there is also a 2. So first of all, I think it's worth noting at least that Web3 is a marketing term. However, I always like to say that just because it's a marketing term doesn't mean that it's not describing something real. All good marketing terms describe something, right? So
Absolutely.
We've gone through basically several evolutions of general practice on the internet ever since its inception. The internet is really not that old in the grand scheme of things, you know. And we started with one, way of doing things. We evolved, and now we're in the process of evolving again over the last 10 years or so. And all we're interested in doing today is kind of breaking down each of those different layers so that when someone uses the term Web3 in day-to-day conversation, you have an idea of what it is that they're talking about.
Sounds good, man. Take me in the time machine all the way back.
So I'm excited because we are bringing to you for the first time this sleek and beautiful presentation courtesy of the free Adobe Express, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, the show is not sponsored by Adobe Express, but it could be. Look at that crispy, beautiful PowerPoint.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Not sponsored, but we should be. So Adobe, looking at you. All right. As we said, Web3 is simply a term that refers to the current evolution of the internet that we are sort of collectively working towards. And when I say collectively, I mean the small few of us who are actively pursuing Web3 ideals, which is exactly what we're going to cover here. But it's a new thing. It's not the most popular thing in the world. It definitely has some negative connotations. Evan, I'm sure you, like everyone here, has probably heard. And obviously, we try to teach people about the downsides all the time. But today, we're just going to focus on general idea.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and pull the rug by saying the 3 we're talking about is 3 key concepts that we're going to walk you through, where on the internet, you're able to not only read information, not only write information as a creator, but truly, for the first time on the internet, own it as well. So that's really what we're talking about here, is an ownership revolution. Now you're going to take me back in the time machine? Do I get to go back to the 90s? Oh, snap.
We're going to go back. We're going to go back in time. So the internet sort of, got its start in a very tiny way in throughout the course of the late 80s into the early 90s. And then I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but I want to say, Evan, that the first website was around 1990. That's not super important for the context of this video, but I'll fact check myself here in a second. And at this stage of internet evolution, it was really only presenting information to people who could get online and look at it. So we like to say that the first internet, Web 1, was read only. Very few people were putting information and content up, and then everyone else who had access to it could look at it, but that was all that they could do.
Yeah. And at this point in time, there was a very philosophical discussion happening around early users of the internet who were just people whose computers were connected to each other. And then there were protocols like the World Wide Web, which companies like AOL kind of wanted to bring to you through them as an intermediary. And also protocols like email were developing at this time. So there was this sort of free and open spirit, but there just wasn't a lot of stuff you could do there. You would go and see on Yahoo at one point in time, they had like a web page of the day feature. And you just go to Yahoo and it would be like, here's some guy's blog about surfing, and it was like text, maybe pictures, or like, here's a phone directory, or here's like recipes. And they would just literally have a different website every day. Very much sold on consuming not on creating anything, like a ghost town when it's first founded during the gold rush. Like, yeah, we're here now, but hope you brought some food with you, kind of vibes.
For sure. I will already correct myself. A quick fact check on my original date of internet inception showed me that I missed the mark by just a smidge. So the date range that I was thinking of was really like when we talk about the internet, more akin to what we know it as today. You know, a place where you can like look up an address and go to a place. However, the beginnings of the technologies that led to the birth of the internet started actually all the way back in the 60s, and then certain protocols were being born from then on. I am certainly not the individual to get super technical with that, but I think it would be really interesting, Evan, if we could like find somebody. We should totally do an interview.
We should call Chris Dixon, honestly.
Yeah, with like a true like internet guru, like an internet historian. I think that would be really interesting. And I'm realizing just in this quick little scan that there's a lot about it that I don't know. And
totally.
I would call myself an avid internet user.
So my understanding is, just before we go on, this is something I picked up from Chris, is the internet is, like I said, that network of computers that can talk to each other. The military, academics have been using it for decades, but
yes.
The web is often referred to as the internet today, but it's what we're talking about when we talk about Web 1, the World Wide Web, the particular type of browsing services that allow us to explore websites as consumers. Web 1. Am I right on that? That Web 1,
I think so.
Though it's later than the internet really was, I think we're right about that. It's a late 80s, early 90s phenomenon.
Yeah, no, that's a good distinction, that there is a difference between the internet as a technology, as a collection of different protocols that did stuff, and what we look at today as the internet, which is usually just a web browser.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, okay, so we're reading information, we're on the internet, we can't really do much, but then something exciting happens.
Yep, so throughout the 90s, as websites started to become a thing, what we were just kind of going over here, that browsing the web started to get a little bit easier. There were more tools to do so, started moving towards this second evolution of the internet. And then Web 2 being born let us participate. So we got the ability to not only read what was being written by somebody else, we got the ability to write our own things and publish our own content and ideas to the web. We got to participate.
And when Alex says right, we're not just talking about authoring text. We're talking about buying and selling. We're talking about looking up directions, streaming and downloading music. Sites like eBay, and sites like LimeWire, and sites like Ask Jeeves all of a sudden made the internet the kind of place, MySpace, where you could really start to go and hang out and spend time with your friends doing stuff that you might have done offline. But even still, Alex, I feel like there was sort of this bump before the kind of era we're in now, where it was like, I'm online when I'm sitting down at a computer, right? That was like the start of Web 2. I would log in and log out. But there kind of was this, the iPhone moment sort of brought us to being online all the time. The average person is on their phone between 7 and 8 hours a day. Right. I don't really make the distinction anymore between going online and just living my life. And to me, that's like peak Web 2. We're consuming all the time, we're authoring all the time, and a lot of it is happening online.
Yeah, no, I think that another worthy distinction, kind of going off of what you're referring to there, is that we are very much in this day and age still predominantly in this idea of Web 2, which is just that, there is a plethora of content out there that we can engage with in a ton of different ways, all the way from different ways that we can consume, from reading, watching, playing, all that sort of stuff. But we are just super deep in the world of how else can we contribute. But the thing that unites all of it, the thing that's at the core of what makes something Web 2 or this iteration Web 2, is that all of the stuff that people do on the internet generates data, and all of that data has to live somewhere. And it also generates a tremendous amount of value. The value of data cannot be understated. It's a humongous industry. Storage, protection, privacy, the sale and distribution of data, all of that stuff. And most of it, almost all of it, is owned by a very few amount of either individuals or entities. we think about like how much of the internet, the web is cataloged and indexed by Amazon hosting services, quite a bit. And that's really the thing that we as Web3 users have the issue with, is that we don't get to own any of it. We are online, as you said, consuming content, creating content, interacting with all of these different things, generating data, which is being sold from one entity to another, making them all tremendously wealthy. And we, at the core of all that, do not get to participate in the ownership of it. We don't really get to reap any benefits besides maybe a few little rewards that get kind of trickled out here and there.
Yeah. And it's not even just the rewards or the sharing of the revenue or the benefit, but I would say the biggest problem is the access. Like, because of these big platforms, because of YouTube, I can go on and reach an audience. I can reach an audience through TikTok, billions of people, but I am so reliant on them, on their infrastructure for everything. I can be deplatformed. I don't have really any power to negotiate better terms and conditions for myself as a user. And if I leave the platform, if I decide to switch, because they own all of my data, I go to Twitter from TikTok and I've got to start over totally from scratch. It's like the relationship that I work to cultivate isn't mine. And what I think is interesting, what we'll get to in Web3 is how we're starting to give that digital native idea, a relationship between two people online, a tangible form.
That brings us, I think, pretty nicely into where Web3 starts to enter the picture. Really with the core idea of ownership, like we were discussing. So the whole point of Web3, regardless of how specific pieces of technology get used, I don't want people to get too distracted with the downsides of it, because we can go on and on, of course, about, scams that are present, all of these different issues with different tokens, cryptocurrencies, all that sort of stuff. But at the core of it, there was one singular idea, which was that all of us who create the value that is the reason that the internet is what it is, we're consistently not rewarded for what it is that we contribute, and we don't get to own any of the stuff. We are moving in a direction where our lives are becoming ever more and more digital, and more of our property is becoming digital, and there hasn't been a great way to protect digital property or to own digital property. And that's kind of one of the core ideas and pillars of what makes Web3. So the idea here is really just that simple. If we, to nutshell it and recap where we're at so far, Web 1 let us read, Web 2 let us start to contribute and participate. And in Web 3, we're still doing exactly what we did in Web 2. The idea here is just that we get to own what it is that we are creating, and we get to share in the tremendous value that all of the stuff that we do every day generates for what was just a few people.
And Alex, I know in this video that we're not going to get too technical, but I do think it's worth mentioning a couple of particular moments where blockchain comes into the picture. Specifically, the most important is the launch of the Bitcoin protocol in 2009. When this happened, when the Bitcoin network started and people began to participate with Bitcoin, what happened is a piece of computer code that represents Bitcoin took the place of these central intermediaries, the Facebooks, the Amazons, the eBays, to fulfill the purposes they fulfilled for the members of a network. Now, instead of relying on Amazon, relying on Facebook to keep their word to make a promise, the members of the Bitcoin network were transacting directly with each other via a computer intermediary that could make commitments. It couldn't lie to them. It couldn't cheat them. It was like doing math with a calculator, but now we were applying it to other things online. And from there, it just snowballed. Ethereum is another inflection point, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds, except to emphasize that anything people can do together, where they need to align their incentives, where they could rely on a human or a computer, but a computer could do it better, any of those things can be augmented with and helped by what we call Web3 technology.
No, I think that's a good explanation. I would say the two key distinctions that you hit on there that are worth pointing out by themselves are that in the way that Web3 wants to allow people to own what they contribute, we can boil it down to that kind of bumper sticker.
Totally.
But the way the methodologies that are used in Web3 to allow people to what they contribute is really what you just said, which is removing the middleman, the proverbial middleman. Because that is really where a lot of the value gets taken up and lost in the Web 2 way of doing things. There's always got to be someone between you and whoever you're really trying to interact with, whether it's the owner of the platform that you're chatting on, whether it's the bank protocol that you're using to wire money from one account.
Even the teller or the cashier.
Exactly. And so in both allowing digital property to be specially marked using tokens to be owned, you get to hold it, to actually own it by custodying that piece of digital property in something called a wallet, which don't want to get too technical, like Evan said here. Got plenty of other content and other videos all over the place about, what's a wallet, what's a crypto, all that sort of stuff. But suffice it to say, that's the other piece. So you got these two pillars, right? Remove the middleman and let you be in control of the value that you generate by holding stuff in your own wallet that only you control.
Yeah, I love it, man. And it's I often say, and we've started to just sling it around, tokens are like a medium that can give a tangible form to intangible things. The problem we're solving is on the internet, how do you give a tangible form to a thing? How do you tell one file from another when it's all just pieces of data that anybody can augment? Yep. Encrypted data, it could be money, it could be health records, it could be a memory you have, but now we have a form to capture it. And like a dollar bill in your hand can be held, can be owned. These internet tools in the era of Web3 can finally be held by the people who own them.
Crushed it.
Dude, we did it together. You rescued me from the weeds there. I was starting to go down in the reeds and thinking to myself, oh my God, but you just pulled me right out. And we've got it. All we've got to do now is invent Web 4 and Web 5, and we'll be set for that.
I think the internet is trying to skip Web 4 and go straight to Web 5. I've been seeing that term starting to circulate already.
Okay, so Alex, if somebody is finished with this video and they're excited to learn more, they obviously can leave us their questions in the comments, but do you have any other recommendations for people to engage with this idea, to set themselves up for success in this future iteration of the internet?
It almost might seem like a counterproductive piece of advice, but really the best thing that you can do is just to keep using the internet in the exact same way that you're using, but just start to sort of direct the things that you read and learn about in a direction that helps you kind of, acquire some more knowledge about this stuff that we're talking about. Because like we said in the beginning, there is a tremendous amount of, as is present in any new industry, a tremendous amount of ways that you can get burned, so to speak. There's a huge financial component to the way that Web3 is usually discussed. And that's, of course, the various narratives in and around cryptocurrencies as a thing. So really the best thing that I think anybody can do who wants to get started is to simply start learning. And honestly, beyond finding a network of people on social media who enjoy this kind of stuff, because honestly, there are communities all over all of your favorite social media platforms, whether it's TikTok or Twitter or YouTube or Twitch, whatever. Mm-hmm. There are people talking about this kind of stuff. And then the next thing I would do is just to sort of familiarize yourself with some of the words and the terms that people are using to describe all of this new tech. And even though this video is absolutely not sponsored by Coinbase, it totally should be, because I will yet again send people to coinbase.com/learn, because it's a completely free, you don't even need to give them your email to make a free account. You can just go right there and read. And they have just some really good, super beginner friendly guides to kind of get you, first little toe dip in the pond. But beyond that, I think that's where I would start. That's exactly where I would start.
I would start there too. I agree completely. Coinbase Learn is a great place to go. Obviously, you found Faceless Labs and the Rise Up Morning Show. If you don't know, we are live every Monday through Thursday at 7 a.m. Central Time on TikTok to help you wrap your mind around this Web3 crypto stuff. No such thing as a dumb question there. And at theriseupmorningshow.com, you can find all of the links for our community, including this YouTube channel, the TikTok streams, our free weekly newsletter, and the free Discord community where you can come, hang out, ask your questions. We can all share what we know, and we will, as the many, rise up together to write a better future. And I'm just excited to keep doing that work, man.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Cool. Well, until next time, my friends, rise up.